Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. The Alberta economy is rebounding. Jobs Minister Doug Schweitzer will talk about which industries specifically are really thriving in our province right now. As students head back to school next week, Lethbridge West MLA Shannon Phillips says the province needs to do more to protect our kids from the Omicron variant. And a man who was the first black actor to win an Oscar, Sidney Poitier, has died at the age of 94.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Well, it appears as though the economy in Alberta is rebounding. The province's Alberta's employment rate is now 64.2%, and the unemployment rate has dropped to the lowest level since the start of the pandemic. Jobs, Economy and Innovation Minister Doug Schweitzer says Alberta added more than 100,000 jobs over the past year alone. Minister Schweitzer says there are a number of industries thriving right now.
We're seeing so many different industries hit their stride. We've got our traditional base of the economy, from agriculture to energy to forestry, all looking like they're going to have a very strong 2022. But on top of that, we're seeing true diversification happen in Alberta. We've talked about that for decades. But what we're seeing right now is that film and television, for example, is having its best year ever in 2021. And we're looking like 2022 is going to be even better than that. We've got the largest television show ever done in Canadian history being filmed right now in Alberta. So we're seeing thousands upon thousands of jobs in the film and television industry in Alberta. On top of that, the tech sector. Now, this is one of those things where you think it's more Silicon Valley and San Francisco, but Alberta's venture capital is growing year over year, breaking records. We're seeing major international companies like Amazon build a multi-billion-dollar data center in Alberta. So really, we're firing on all cylinders right now, which is why 130,000 jobs were created in Alberta last year. We just saw 11,000 new jobs in December alone. And Alberta is forecasted to lead the whole country in growth in 2022. So there's lots of reasons to be optimistic about Alberta's rebound.
Minister Schweitzer also noted that the momentum Alberta is seeing is translating to more people moving to our province, which is helping to lead to a strong real estate market. Across Alberta, home sales are up 52% compared with 2020. On Monday, hundreds of thousands of students will be returning to class in Alberta. Now, many are concerned about what is being done to protect our kids from the contagious Omicron variant as in-person learning begins once again. Lethbridge West MLA Shannon Phillips took to social media earlier today to say that she's heard from many parents who are concerned. She says the government needs to step up to the plate and do the right thing.
I share in their frustration and anger. We are now 2 years into a pandemic, and we have a premier, an education minister, and a cabinet that still refuse to invest in protecting kids in school with very specific, common sense measures that we know will work to prevent spread of COVID-19. Now, kids deserve better than watching the minister make the same mistakes over and over and over again. Just look at where we were in September at the height of the fourth wave, at a time when other provinces like Ontario and British Columbia started installing HEPA filters and increasing air ventilation and filtration in schools. The UCP kicked off back to school in Alberta with no new support, nothing. And we had the worst fourth wave in Canada.
MLA Phillips says Education Minister Adriana LaGrange should commit to resigning if Alberta schools close once again due to the Omicron wave of COVID-19. The province released some information as to who has been diagnosed with COVID-19, whether vaxxed or not, since 2021. According to the Government of Alberta website, since January 1st of last year, 71% who got the virus were unvaccinated. Just 2.1% of people with 2 doses of the vaccine were diagnosed with COVID-19, and 0.4% were diagnosed with the virus after receiving a single dose. The province also said 75% of COVID-19 related deaths since the start of 2021 were those who were unvaccinated. Canada's top doctor says the country's average daily COVID-19 case count rose 65% from last week, but fortunately, severe illness is not rising at the same rate. Dr. Teresa Tam says the portion of lab tests coming back positive is around 29%, indicating community transmission. She says the risk of hospitalization from the Omicron variant is much lower compared with Delta, as severe illness is not spiking at the same rate as infections.
given current daily case counts are already about 400% higher than the peak of the third wave. It is not unexpected to see daily hospitalizations rising. However, international surveillance suggests that while these trends can be expected to increase with the Omicron surge, severe illnesses are not rising at the same explosive rate as for cases.
A special meeting was held earlier today at Lethbridge City Hall discussing COVID-19. Members of the Lethbridge Emergency Advisory Committee discussed the city's response to the Omicron variant. Emergency Preparedness Manager Luke Palmer explains.
As we're still in emergency response, it's great to connect with council, ultimately to get a feel for how they can support us, but ultimately get information out to the community so the residents are aware of what's going on in tandem of what Alberta Health is providing the community as well. It's maintaining the workforce through a disruption, and the key emphasis is continuing to work from home because that order is still a part of the CMOH order that's active, as well as the staying home if you're sick, and that should apply for not just the workplace, but if you're going out in public as well.
Palmer says they've had weekly conversations with Dr. Dina Henshaw on how the province can best help in the battle against the novel coronavirus. The City of Lethbridge says frontline workers are the most impacted right now by the new Omicron variant of COVID-19. Director of Community Services Mike Fox says currently 59 workers are sick with the virus, but the number of active cases changes every day.
It fluctuates every day. So every day that changes. Some people, when they test positive, are off just for the quarantine period and have no symptoms. So it really depends on the individual case, on how long they're off and how many numbers we have on a daily basis. So to make sure for our contingency plans, we monitor it daily. And if we see it going up exponentially in one area, then we look at what's going on in that area and adjust.
City officials say police and transit are the departments most affected by COVID-19. The discipline hearing for a Lethbridge police officer who pleaded guilty to 5 counts of misconduct has been adjourned until next month. It was supposed to originally take place on Monday. Instead, the new date will be February 2nd at 9 a.m. at the Galt Museum Service Credit Union Learning Studio. The presiding officer for the LPS professional conduct hearing, upon request from the cited Officers' Council, requested the adjournment. Thousands of Albertans rely on the Old Man Watershed, not just for drinking water, but also for our agriculture industries. Shannon Frank is with the Old Man Watershed Council, a group which protects that water supply. She says the Old Man Watershed is huge and impacts not just Albertans.
You know, it does flow quite far all through Alberta and southern Alberta, and then into Saskatchewan, Lake Winnipeg, and then out to Hudson's Bay. So a large area is impacted, and we are at the top, we're at the headwaters. So, you know, we do have a bit of an extra responsibility to maintain the health and function so that everybody downstream benefit.
Make sure you catch the full interview with Shannon Frank from the Old Man Watershed Council and myself coming up after business news. Various organizations in our community will be getting ready to don their skates for a very good cause on January 15th at the Nicholas Sharon Arena. The Badges versus Boltz charity hockey game will pit members of the Lethbridge Lightning against the Lethbridge Police, RCMP, and fire and emergency crews. As video journalist Micah Quinn explains, a portion of ticket sales will go towards helping those who are battling cancer.
At the end of the day, it's all for one good cause.
Alex Serrard is the goaltender for the Lethbridge Lightning, and he says this event is personal.
I know for myself, playing for the Pronghorns at the University of Lethbridge, the one season we've had 3 members of our team who were diagnosed with cancer at that time. So it touched closely to home for me, and we just decided we want to give back to the community. This is our community. Majority of the guys on the team play here, are from here, so we want to be able to give back and do more, and I think it brings awareness to our team as well, and like the quality of hockey that we have to offer.
Serrard says he's not sure what to expect going up against the 3-pronged attack of the Lethbridge Police Service, RCMP, and Lethbridge Fire and Emergency Services.
Yeah, I know a lot of players on all 3 forces, or the 3 badges, played junior hockey in college and so on, so it'll be exciting to play against guys that are there to kind of show their skill too, so it should be a good game.
According to Stats Canada, 40% of Canadians will be diagnosed with some form of cancer in their lifetime, and 25% will die from the deadly disease. 20% of ticket sales for the game will be given to the Jack 80 Cancer Centre, located within the Chinook Regional Hospital. The money will go towards patient comfort and needs, staff education, and equipment.
We typically see new patient visits, about 1,800 a year in the center. That comprises about 30,000 unique visit or interactions with staff. So quite a busy center. The mandate for the center was to give people easier access closer to home.
Surratt says the group is looking to grow the event and hopefully be able to play at the Lethbridge NMAX Centre going into the near future. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Lovers of film are set to view some award-winning movies at the Yates Theatre. The Banff Centre Mountain Film Festival World Tour will showcase a variety of film entries. Over 400 movies are picked to travel the globe. Jonathan Jarvie with the Lethbridge Public Library says this is a great opportunity for Lethbridge residents to get out and enjoy some modern-day films.
The program we'll be showing has, I believe, about 8 films. They range anywhere from 4 minutes, the shortest film, up to 55 minutes is the longest one. And they're from a variety of different countries around the world. The United States, Canada, United Kingdom, France, and I believe the last one we have this year is from Switzerland.
Make sure you mark that down on the calendar. The event will take place at the Yates Theatre on January 14th. Now, you'll have to present your QR code or provide proof of a negative PCR test 72 hours before being able to enter the facility. A local supply store is spearheading a fundraiser for the SPCA in honor of actress Betty White and her love for animals. As Angela Stewart explains, the donations will go towards some much-needed supplies.
So it's a nice honor for her, I think.
She was the golden girl on camera, but off she was known as an animal lover. Betty White dedicated her time to caring and loving for animals, while also being an animal welfare advocate.
Betty White was a great person, great animal person, everything, so stands to reason I don't think anybody ever had a bad thing to say about her.
Following the actress's death, the Betty White Challenge was created, and now the Lethbridge Tactical Supply are getting the fundraiser off the ground. In a Facebook post, the supply store says it would be great if by January 17th, animal shelters are flooded with donations in Betty White's name. In part with the fundraiser, the Tactical Supply are teaming up with the Lethbridge and District Humane Society. Well, Betty White's love for animals was truly undeniable, and what would have been her 100th birthday on January 17th, the Lethbridge Tactical Supply will match the donations to the Humane Society of up to $1,000.
It's awesome, especially, you know, after year end, the beginning of the year and starting over. So it's really nice for them to do that for us.
Some of the donations will go towards
food for cats and dogs, litter. We have to pay our utility bills, so this time of year they're cranked up quite a bit because it's so cold. But just everything in general that we need to run the place and to make sure the cats and dogs have everything they need.
For Bridge City News, I'm Angela Stewart.
There's some beautiful animals there. Calgary cookbook author Julie Van Rosendaal is offering children a sweet reprieve from being locked down with an online class teaching them how to make homemade treats. Hundreds of kids have signed on to learn new recipes over Zoom.
It's minus 30, I think it's minus 40 with the wind chill in Calgary this week. And, you know, I just feel for kids who can't play with their friends. Parents can't take them out. They can't go to the park. It's really hard. And so I know what it's like. I have a teenager who is very easy to take care of during a pandemic right now. He's very self-sufficient. And so I thought, you know, maybe this will be a distraction for some kids. And if it's worth it, if it helps even a few families, then it's worth a try. I increased my Zoom account to accommodate 1,000. I wanted to do it on Zoom instead of, you know, Facebook Live or a live feed because I like the interactive nature of it. I like being able to see the kids in their kitchens if they have their cameras on, so they can show me their dough, they can show me their pastry, you know, how does this look? Does it look done? And they can see each other. And some keep their cameras off, but I wanted it to be, you know, more interactive like that.
The Ontario government says it will offer a $10,000 grant to small business owners who are forced to close due to new public health measures. Eligible businesses include gyms, museums, galleries, and tour services. It says qualified businesses can expect to receive payment next month, though NDP leader Andrea Horvath says that timeline is too slow. It appears as though the Winnipeg Jets will continue playing home games in Manitoba while the province deals with a wave of the COVID-19 Omicron variant. Jets CEO John Olfert says games at the Canada Life Centre will continue even if only 250 fans are allowed to attend due to public health orders. A spokesperson for the team said that they were looking into alternatives, such as playing in Regina rather than playing in a near-empty arena. A lot of Atlantic Canada was lashed with brutal weather earlier today. Environment Canada issued winter storm warnings for all 4 provinces with strong winds and heavy snow in the forecast. Up to 40 centimeters fell in parts of New Brunswick, and as much as 45 centimeters of the white stuff could fall in northern Nova Scotia. PEI could also expect to see up to 40 centimeters of snow. Blizzard and extreme cold warnings were also in effect for southeastern and central Labrador. 2 years after Iranian forces shot down a passenger jet, Habib Hajju still feels the pain. He grieves for the loss of his daughter, Saranaz, and his 8-year-old granddaughter, Elsa.
I miss her a lot. What part I know is hard. I miss her telephone call every day to me. I miss her visit. I miss her hug. I miss her love. I miss her care. I miss her to be around me. I miss her to moan and back. I miss her in all aspects. It's very hard to put it in words. I don't know really what I can say. I'm ready to give my life. She be with me a few minutes.
Many people in Colorado are still trying to put their lives back together following last week's deadly wildfire. Close to 1,000 homes were destroyed, including the home owned by Pastor Bill Stevens and at least 17 members of his congregation.
I'm the lead pastor of the church in town that was right in the heart of what happened. So the fire actually went around our building and burned our building because it's an old Sam's Club, so it didn't have anything to catch on to. So, I'm trying my best to take care of the congregation. At the same time, we're dealing with the fact that our own house is gone. I think we have 17 people so far that have lost their home from our church, and so and really it's the 17 people that have lost their home, but it's also all the people that have been displaced and the people that have a ton of smoke damage, the ones that are trying to figure out, did their pipes burst when they turned off the electricity, and it's just a community that's it's all been rocked by this. So we lost all the pictures, all the videos, my wife's wedding ring, all of it. And so you go through roller coaster. Sometimes you laugh at just some of the dumbest little things with your family because you have to. It's all the parts of grief. You go through the sadness. You go through it truly is a roller coaster. At one moment you'll be doing fine, and then you'll be driving down the road and you'll start crying.
Veteran actor Sidney Poitier, a man who opened the doors for many black people in Hollywood, has died. Poitier was the first black actor to win an Academy Award.
Sidney Poitier, the groundbreaking actor and enduring inspiration who transformed how black people were portrayed on screen, has died. He was 94.
The winner is Sidney Poitier.
And the announcement is received warmly by the audience.
Poitier was the first black actor to win an Academy Award for Best Lead Performance and the first to be a top box office draw. Before Poitier, the son of Bahamian tomato farmers, no black actor had sustained a career as a lead performer or could get a film produced based on his own star power. And before Poitier, few black actors were permitted a break from the stereotypes of servants and entertainers.
And you don't know who I am. You don't know how I feel, what I think. And if I try to explain it the rest of your life, you will never understand.
Known for his roles in The Defiant Ones, A Raisin in the Sun and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, it was his performance in 1964's Lilies of the Field that won Poitier the Best Actor Oscar. Hilary Fox, The Associated Press.
He was definitely one of my parents' favorite actors. The extreme cold warning ended for much of southwestern Alberta, and the mercury will be climbing. Complete weather details are coming up. Well, we had more light flurries in Lethbridge today. They also had a little bit of snow and some mule deer out near Hinton by the foothills. Here's a picture that Linda sent to us of her hubby Dan feeding the deer when he went out to feed their horses in front of their house. That is so cute to see. We may need a warm coat just like Dan was wearing here tonight in Lethbridge. Expect more snow developing with a low near -27. As we kick off the weekend, expect more snow on Saturday with a high of -8. Even warmer on Sunday under a partly cloudy sky with a high of -2. The Chinook winds blow in with full force on Monday. Expect lots of sunshine and a high of 16 degrees. Tuesday, warm again with a high of 13. Wednesday, just 1 degree cooler at 12 degrees. And Thursday, a mainly cloudy day with a high near 6 degrees. We'll take it for this time of year. Now, the average high for this time of year is -2 and an average low of -14. The highest temperature on this date was recorded back in 2002 at 16 degrees, and the record low was -36 in 1989. The sun rose today at 8:27 and set at 4:48. Looking at the national forecast for tomorrow now, expect rain in Victoria with a high near 5 degrees. Periods of snow mixed with rain and a high of 3 degrees for Vancouver. A good chance of snow at -25 for Edmonton on Saturday. Sunshine and -11 for Calgary. Blowing snow and -22 is on tap for Regina. A mixture of sun and cloud and a high of -23 for Saskatoon. Snow and -11 for Winnipeg tomorrow. A slight chance of flurries and 0 in Toronto. Ottawa should be mainly sunny and -11. Just a few clouds and -12 is on tap for Montreal. In Atlantic Canada, the clouds should clear out in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and you should get up to -7. Flurries and -3 degrees for Halifax, Nova Scotia. Expect snow and blowing snow and -5 in Charlottetown, PEI. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect rain mixed with snow and a high near +2 degrees on Saturday. Canada's December unemployment rate fell to the lowest level since the start of the pandemic, adding 55,000 jobs. Stats Can says that pushed the jobless rate from 6 to 5.9%. That's the lowest rate since February of 2020. The latest job survey, however, came before new public health restrictions were being put in place to help slow the spread of the Omicron variant. Economists say while the December report was positive, it seems inevitable that employment will fall later this month. Farm groups across Canada say they're concerned that the Omicron variant could stress Canadian food production. The Canadian Federation of Agriculture says the industry had a chronic labor shortage even before the pandemic 2 years ago. Production at dairy farms, greenhouses, and mushroom farms could be affected if large numbers of employees need to stay home sick. In 2020, outbreaks at meatpacking plants here in Alberta sickened hundreds of workers, resulting in temporary plant shutdowns. Western Canada's beef slaughter capacity dropped by about 25% of normal. Budget airline Ryanair says it will stop serving Germany's busiest airport at the end of March. Officials there say they're relocating 5 planes based in Frankfurt to other European airports that have lowered airport charges to help stimulate traffic recovery. The airline says instead of providing incentives, the Frankfurt airport has increased prices even further, making it uncompetitive. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 12 points in the day to finish at 21,084. The Dow was down 4 points to 36,232. The S&P 500 was down 19 points to 4677, and the Nasdaq was down 144 on the day to 14,936. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 56 cents to 78.90 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 10 cents to 3.92 US. Gold was up 5.38 to 17.9655 US an ounce, and silver was up 17 cents on the day to 22.37 US an ounce. Wheat is at $12.44 per bushel, barley's at $9.71, canola's at $23, and corn is at $10.62 per bushel. Live cattle were down 3 cents to $137.33, feeder cattle were down 48 cents to $162.10, and lean hogs were down 3.30 to $79.65. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 79.10 US. Recapping one of our top stories, it appears as though the economy in Alberta is rebounding. The province says Alberta's employment rate is now 64.2%, and the unemployment rate has dropped to the lowest level since the start of the pandemic. Jobs, Economy and Innovation Minister Doug Schweitzer says Alberta added more than 130,000 jobs over the past year alone. The Old Man Watershed is vital to life not only for our region, but for many other areas of the province. Coming up, we chat with Shannon Frank from the Old Man Watershed Council about what her group is doing to protect that vital water supply. The Alberta Rockies feed the headwaters of various rivers, including the Old Man, Crow's Nest, and Castle Rivers. Many of us living here in southern Alberta see a lot of these waters, if not every day, then often during our weekend excursions to the mountains and foothills. The watershed is vital for life in our region, not only supplying drinking water, but also water needed to feed our livestock and crops. Now, there's a group working to protect these waters called the Old Man Watershed Council. Shannon Frank is with the council and joins us today here in Lethbridge. Shannon, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you very much.
Now, so many of us here in southern Alberta enjoy the waters flowing from the Rockies on our weekends and exploring, but many of us also don't realize that groups like yours look out for the quality of this local watershed. Can you explain?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me. The Old Man Watershed Council is a registered charity and nonprofit based in Lethbridge, and we're a collaborative forum working with everybody in the watershed. So we have 19 sectors on our board, and it's all about working together to protect the watershed and make sure that it's healthy enough to support our industries and our communities so that we can enjoy the benefits now, but also for future generations. So as a nonprofit, we do a lot of work with all levels of government, our First Nations communities, our cities, our towns, and basically everyone, no matter who you are, you have a role to play. And our goal is to really engage people from all walks of life so that our whole community is committed to protecting watershed health.
So Shannon, can you really educate us as to what a watershed is and why it's so important?
A watershed is an area of land that all drains into a common water body. So in this case, the Old Man River. But it can be at a smaller scale, like the Crow's Nest River watershed, or it can be at a larger scale, like the Hudson Bay watershed that we are a part of, because our river flows east through the prairies to Lake Winnipeg and into Hudson's Bay. So everything that's happening on that land actually impacts the nearby creeks and rivers and lakes, and it all comes together. And so that's the idea of the watershed is a part of all of that land and all of the people on that land. So we all have to work collaboratively to protect it.
Now, when you actually look at a map, the watershed can look a little similar to the circulatory system of the human body. Do you think that's kind of a good comparison?
Yeah, for sure. Like in our bodies, everything's working together to keep us healthy. Similarly with the watershed, we have to work together, and our rivers and our lakes and our creeks work together to maintain ecological function and habitat and filtering water and that sort of thing, so that everything is definitely connected. And that's why it's so important that us as humans are doing our part to support the natural ecosystems and the fish and the wildlife and the trees, because we are all connected and we depend on each other to have this function so that we can enjoy the benefits of that, like clean water, clean air, and healthy, abundant wildlife, and so on.
So like a human body, a watershed could become sick or even misaligned?
Yeah, exactly. We've seen instances of this where there could be a spill or too much pollution or too much land disturbance, and a watershed can become unhealthy. And we can do assessments to see what the health is. So we have indicators in science that we use to assess. In our last report was in 2010, was a very large scale state of the watershed report. We gave ratings of good, fair, and poor to each major section of the watershed: the prairies, the mountains, the foothills, and the southern tributaries. And we find there is a range. Some areas are healthier than others, and some really need our attention.
Now, the Old Man Watershed, Shannon, may start in the mountains west of Lethbridge, but how far east feels the impact of this watershed?
Well, it meets up with the Bow River at the forks just outside Grassy Lake, and from there becomes the South Saskatchewan River. So it does flow quite far, all through Alberta and southern Alberta, and then into Saskatchewan, Lake Winnipeg, and then out to Hudson's Bay. So a large area is impacted, and we are at the top, we're at the headwaters. So, we do have a bit of an extra responsibility to maintain the health and function so that everybody downstream benefits and can enjoy those same necessities that we rely on. So as more creeks and rivers flow in, our impact might be diluted a little bit along the way by other water coming in, but we certainly are at the headwaters, which are the most important source for Western Canada.
It sounds like the lives of millions of people depend on this water that flows through many parts of Alberta. Let's talk about more specifically who relies on the watershed.
Of course. So we all do, right? Like our cities and towns withdraw our drinking water from nearby creeks and rivers. And then we put back our wastewater into those same creeks and rivers. So, we're literally using it day in and day out. And then our whole, like a large portion of our economy in Southwest Alberta is dependent on agriculture, and specifically irrigated agriculture, where we need that water to grow the crops and feed the livestock that, is benefiting our jobs and our economy. So without that, we would have much less jobs and less people would be able to live here, because the industry would just be a lot smaller without irrigation. And in times of drought, like we saw this year, I guess last year now in 2021, the drought was very severe for dryland farmers who didn't have irrigation. It's very tough to be a dryland farmer, and we need that water. And there was just an economic study that came out that showed that, billions of dollars come out of the irrigation sector every year. And then also, of course, for our environment, for our fish and our wildlife, our trees, water filtration that we get for free from our wetlands and our ecosystems, the places that we enjoy in the mountains for recreation. It's all dependent on water, and more specifically on the snowpack that we get in the mountains. It's not the rain in the summer so much, it's actually the snowpack in the mountains that we depend on. And so we're always watching, how much is there. The government measures it, they report it because it's so critical.
Let's talk about some of the coal mining in the eastern slopes of the Canadian Rockies. A lot of controversy there. You've even had country stars like Cor Blunt from our area and Paul Brandt getting involved, saying it's going to impact our water quality. The Old Man Watershed Council is dedicated to protecting this watershed. What are your thoughts when it comes to coal mining in the Rockies, how that impacts the water?
We are a resource for decision makers. So we provide unbiased information, scientific research, and concerns and questions that we're hearing from stakeholders. So that's what we did when the coal debate erupted. And we continue to provide information about the potential impacts of coal mining. And we also shared information about some of the positive potential impacts of job creation. And so, our role is not to make judgments, and we don't take sides on large development projects. Our focus is on providing that trustworthy information, and looking at the science to see what we can learn from past research, from past projects. And then we encourage the public and our decision makers to learn from that information and come to their own conclusions. And we provided input directly to the Alberta Energy Regulator and the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada through written submissions and presentations. And so we really pointed out that there could be, significant environmental impacts from coal mining along the eastern slopes. And we also mentioned, that there can be economic benefits. So we really try to be a forum for discussion and debate. And similar with any other large project, there's going to be opinions on all sides. And we encourage that discussion based on fact and science.
Now, collaborative projects are an important part of what your council does. Let's talk about some of those collaborations.
For sure. So we work with everybody, and it's all about, trying to encourage everybody to kind of step up and do a little bit more for the benefit of the watershed and the future generations that will be depending on it. So we have a large project in the headwaters where we work directly with backcountry recreationists to adopt good practices, steer clear of water, not driving through the creeks when they're recreating, picking up garbage, leave no trace principles, that sort of thing. And then we also do a lot of restoration projects. So planting willows to reinforce stream banks, planting trees and shrubs to bring back the vegetation in a damaged area so that it can function again. We also have partnerships with our Indigenous communities to do similar work of restoration and engaging communities. Also with farmers and ranchers, we support stewardship projects on private land. A lot of what we do is provide funding for riparian fencing and off-stream watering units so that cattle is kept out of the water, and it also benefits the operation. It means they're not, in a wet area, and they have better weight gain. So, no matter who you are, if you're urban, if you're rural, if you're recreating, there's always something you can do. And so our job is to support those good practices and help people make the good choices and make it easy for them, maybe with some funding or resources.
Do beavers have much of an impact in the Old Man Watershed area?
Yes, beavers are a bit controversial sometimes, but they are a very important part of the ecosystem for holding back water on the land, especially during floods. Those natural beaver dams that they build help us during drought so that there's more water retention on the land, especially wetlands that are connected to groundwater. And they also hold back water in times of flood, so they're very important.
How does the Old Man Watershed Council interact with recreation groups?
We worked collaboratively to educate recreationists, so like attending races and events, talking to them about good practices, things they can do when they're out on the land. I mentioned a few, like steer clear of water, and we also promote, putting out your fires. There's a lot of things that recreationists can inadvertently do when they're out there. We don't realize how much impact we have sometimes because we think we're just one person, but we're actually one of thousands that are doing the same thing. So our impact adds up. So we ask people to stay on designated trails, not go through the water, and basically leave no trace.
One more question for you. What about the impact of the watershed on agriculture? Let's talk a bit about that.
Well, the watershed supports agriculture, of course. The soil that is growing the crops and feeding the cattle is critical. We wouldn't exist without that good soil that we have. And then the water that's feeding the livestock and watering the crops. And it's also, feeding our processing industry. A lot of what we have here is based on the processing side, and we need water for that too. So it's all connected, and we all can do our part to do a little bit more, step up a little bit, to make sure the watershed health is protected.
Shannon Frank is with the Old Man Watershed Council. Shannon, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, being a mother can be incredibly a challenging juggling act, and an instruction manual would definitely help. Well, we may have one for you today as we are joined by Dallas Lewis, a mother of 3 and author of Why Some Animals Eat Their Young, a survivor's guide to motherhood. Dallas, welcome. You're joining us from Houston. Love the title of your book, by the way. It's hilarious.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so good to be here. Yeah.
All right. So you dived right into the motherhood business. So I understand that within a span of only 26 months, you went from getting married to having 3 kids. Boom, 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 just like that. So did you and your husband plan for things to happen this way, or was this unexpected?
No, totally unexpected. We planned to get married. We planned to have children. We thought there would be more space in between all of those events, and it turns out there really wasn't. I met my husband. We got married 6 months later, and then 6 months after that, we got pregnant, and I just stayed pregnant, like all the time.
For what felt like forever, probably.
Yes, definitely forever.
What were the biggest adjustments that you had to make to how you envisioned your life would turn out once you married your Prince Charming? And his name's Jeff, right?
His name is Jeff. Yeah. So the biggest adjustment that I made was not being able to sleep. When we had all of these kids, nobody tells you that babies don't sleep. They don't sleep at all. And they sleep more than their mothers, and they definitely sleep more than their fathers do. I think my husband morphs into some super stealth ninja at night because none of the children ever woke him up to fight bad guys, to fix tummy aches, nothing. I don't know what they thought I was going to do against a monster in the hallway, but I don't know. Nope. That's my job title. I fight bad guys. And, and I kiss boo-boos.
So you were super mom.
Yeah. And I didn't sleep for almost a decade. I had a baby monitor next to my bed. I had 3 of them. And so I knew which kid to go to. And, then you'd make the rounds. Once you're upstairs, you just make the rounds and make sure everybody else is okay. And 9 times out of 10, you made more than one stop.
Right. Now, I mean, many moms describe motherhood as being the toughest job in the world. You have as well. So why, in your life, in your opinion, why is motherhood the toughest job in the world? As if we can't tell already from your little bit of a story there.
Well, did I mention that we don't get any sleep? That I didn't realize. I want to take back all of the times in my kindergarten years and my first grade years when they wanted us to nap, and I said, no, I'm good. You can't stockpile sleep. And it's just, I was a stay-home mom. That was what Jeff and I decided. We, especially when we had so many of them, and it just didn't make any sense for me to work outside the home. But with that means that I don't ever leave my office. I'm on duty 24/7 with no interaction with people that can actually put coherent words together. And so it gets very tiresome. My sweet husband, he could actually leave his work and come home. I never left my work. I never left. So that just, it makes it kind of wearisome at times. It's wonderful. I wouldn't change a thing. But it does make it a little bit exhausting at times.
I think definitely that's one thing you do hear about moms, especially stay-home moms, is that becomes their world, right? And you almost forget how to talk to other adults. But, and you need those boundaries. So you believe that kids not only need boundaries, but they also want them. Speaking of boundaries, so kids need them. So without those boundaries, the kids are in control and not the parent. So why do you believe that our society is so confused about this role of parenthood?
You nailed it, because the kids are in control, and it totally goes against the natural law, the natural order, the hierarchy of the family. And there's so many instances that you see all over TV, you see them on the news, you see them all over social media, that, little Junior runs the house, and little Junior doesn't pay the mortgage, and, he doesn't pay the light bill. And we told our kids, we allow you to live here. That's your allowance. You are allowed to live here, and you are allowed to take out the trash when I tell you, and maybe I'll feed you dinner. And, but it's the parent's job to be a parent. I wasn't friends with my mom until I turned 40. And, it's just not my job to be their friend. They have friends, but what they need are parents, grown-ups, and other adults around them to show them where their place in society is and how to behave like a functioning member of that society.
Mm-hmm. Very good point. Now, you advocate that one of the greatest examples parents can give their children is to put each other first and model a healthy marriage. So why do you believe that this is and why this isn't selfish?
Because of what I just said, it's our job to raise productive members of society and then release them into the wild. And if we've done our job as parents, we can do that, and then our children will go and be another generation of hands-on good parents. But in doing that, if we forget our spouse and we forget who we're married to, then by the time that last little chick leaves the nest, we're going to be having coffee with a stranger. And that is detrimental to any relationship. And, my husband has continued to date me for the last 22 years. And, and human babies, girl, human babies are the most helpless babies on the planet until they're maybe 35. And then, they need guidance, they need a hands-on parent. But at the same time, that parent still needs to be able to connect. Mom and dad need to be more than just mom and dad. They need to remember that they're husband and wife. And that's the best gift that we can give our kids. So, because we want that trend to continue into the next generation and the next generation. And I think it's really, really important.
Mm-hmm, it is. And I can understand too, some people, maybe their initial reaction would be, oh, that's selfish that we're putting ourselves first, or I'm putting somebody before my children. But when you think about it, the spouse was there first in some cases and in a lot of cases. And that is how it's supposed to be. But yeah, I can see that kind of the guilt when you don't put your kids first. But I think we're not supposed to put our kids necessarily first in everything.
Mm-mm. No, we're not. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I would do anything. I would fight a grizzly bear for my children. But I would also do the same thing for my spouse who's been there for me for the last 22 years, who loves me unconditionally. He's seen me at my worst. He's been my partner, my stabilizer, all of this through all the chaos, and he's been there. So I think that it's not selfish. It's self-preservation to be able to go for a weekend downtown and leave the kids at grandma's.
There you go. Now, Dallas, you use the acronym UFO a bit differently. So you call this unique family opportunities. So how do you navigate these situations, and what do you try to teach your children through these?
To be honest, I'm still learning that, as I have a lot of unique family opportunities on both sides of the family. Both sides, my side, his side, everybody. And the best advice I can give is, you don't exactly know where everybody is in their personal daily life. And sometimes, it's difficult to look at a happy functioning family and you don't have that yourself. And so sometimes it gets a little wonky. But the best thing to do is realize that his family gave him to me, and so there's a level of respect with that. And then my family, well, they gifted me to him, and my mother already said there's no refunds. So he stuck with me, which means he's stuck with my parents too. So, you do the best you can. You show grace to everybody, mercy, and just try to treat people the way that you would like to be treated. Doesn't always work, but you know that as far as it depends on you, you're at peace.
Yeah, I like that. Unique family opportunities. Is that a nice way of saying craziness? Family craziness.
So crazy. So crazy.
That's hilarious. Now, Dallas, with the COVID pandemic and all the changes that this brings about, so what advice do you have for children who are experiencing worry and anxiety? So many of our kids are experiencing that. Absolutely.
So my youngest actually does suffer from an anxiety disorder, and so that's something that is very, that hit very close to us. We were thankful, we were blessed to have our children in a parochial school environment, private school, that allowed them to work for a solution toward these kiddos they've been on lockdown, they've been relegated to virtual school only, and now if they go back to school, they've got to mask up, and facial expressions are vital. They are vital to comforting a child, to getting your point across, to all of these social cues. And so as parents, when we've got our kiddos that are re-navigating the social scheme, it's just up to us to let them know that their home place is a secure spot for them, and that there's a lot of things that are going to go on in this world that are outside of our capabilities and outside of our control. And the only thing that we can do is give them a safe landing spot in the afternoons and equip them as best we can to do their very best.
I think that's very important because it's happening. So many kids suffer from anxiety. And yeah, absolutely. Now, you say that marriage is hard and marriage with kids is almost impossible. So if you aren't willing to stand your ground and fight for what you have, so can you maybe elaborate on this a little bit?
Sure. It's the same with being my kid's best friend and putting boundaries up. Marriage, you've got two people coming into it that may or may not have known each other very well. And then you throw a kid in there, and honestly, babies don't come with instruction manuals. The hospital will release you with that child. They don't call and check on you. I 3 times they didn't call and check on me, and they probably should have with my first one. But you've got to set those boundaries so that those kiddos don't run your house. Don't run your house. And that's what makes it so difficult, is sometimes mom and dad are not always on the same page, and they really need to be. And that's what makes it so hard. You can navigate the first year of marriage by yourself, but when you start throwing little ones in there and you've got one idea and he's got a different idea, and then don't forget your mother's got an idea and his mom has got an idea. You need to set some ground rules and pay attention to what's going on, or your marriage is going to suffer for it.
That's right, exactly. And then here come the crazies, right? Those unique family opportunities.
That's right.
Yeah, well, Dallas, you use lots of humor, obviously, in telling your stories and lessons that you've learned along the way. But at the same time, none of what you were experiencing was exactly funny, especially at the time. I'm sure that's how that felt. But what is your message to parents or those planning to become parents?
Let's see. My first message is practice with a puppy. Get a puppy first, and see if you can handle the responsibilities. No, but my message is you got to be able to laugh. You've got to be able to laugh at yourself, and because your kids are going to provide multiple opportunities for other people to laugh at you, and so you just need to find the joy in things. This parenting thing is very, very hard, but it's awesome. I mean, it's totally awesome. You get to watch a human come into this world, whether through you or through another avenue, and you get to raise. You have the benefit, the blessing of raising that human, watching their little minds click into place. Now, sometimes it's diabolical. You watch the next budding criminal in your own house, but they're so precious. They're so precious. And I'm thankful that I actually wrote all of these stories down when I did, that I kept a little journal, or I kept, I don't remember exactly when I started my blog, but it helps. Distance helps perspective. So if you can get just a little distance from it and have people to talk to, increase your mom circle, because we weren't created to be islands. We were created to be in community with each other, and nobody is perfect. You don't disregard what you see on Instagram and Facebook. Nobody's perfect. So just learn to just roll with it. You can't control the chaos. Just roll with it.
Mm-hmm. Great advice. And of course, coming from a mom of your kids are now 18, 19, and 20. So you've had that span of experience that you can kind of share your wisdom with others. Thanks so much for being with us today, Dallas. Really appreciate it.
So fun. Thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed it.
Dallas Lewis is the author of Why Some Animals Eat Their Young, a Survivor's Guide to Motherhood. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.